Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be having a look at the ITP M-1, the new Russian premium that is being made available as part of this season's Battle Pass. Now, as you can see, I currently have 0 ranks towards the Battle Pass because I've barely had any time to play the game in the past week thanks to uni, but there we go. So the ITP is found at level 50, so it is a fair grind to get to it. So a lot of people are wondering, is it actually worth the Battle Pass grind to get to it, or is it something that we should skip in favor of something else? Look, in my opinion, I think it's worth getting. It's a solid aircraft. I've had a lot of fun with it so far. I was very lucky enough to be given a 14-day test drive to sort of get my feet wet with this so that I can come up with an actual opinion on how this thing goes in terms of sim gameplay anyway. I haven't really tried it in arcade or realistic yet, but I have heard that the guns are very good in both of those modes just as much as they are in sim. So what do you get with the ITP? Well, you get a lot of gun. You get two 20mm Shivak cannons, which are fuselage mounted, and then you get a nose mounted 37mm SH-37 cannon, which is built through the engine as they are through a lot of these aircraft. Now, the ammunition loadout on this is actually very generous, especially for the 37mm. You get 50 rounds of ammunition, which is quite a lot considering a lot of Russian aircraft have very small ammunition loadouts. So it definitely has that going for it. Very powerful armament, 2 20mm and a 37mm. Now, with that, there are a couple of caveats that I should mention. The 37mm overheats incredibly easily. You can probably only get about 5 or 6 shots off in rapid succession before the gun overheats and most likely jams. I have had it jam on me a few times and it is very annoying. The 20mm have a decent rate of fire. The 37mm, though powerful, is actually rather inaccurate because, this was one of the earliest aircraft the Russians did to have this kind of gun. And the muzzle velocity on the rounds isn't the best. I mean, it isn't the worst, but it also, isn't the best. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now, you do have the option of fitting air targets or armored targets. Now, the armored targets have up to technically 60 mils of penetration, depending on how close you are to target when you squeeze off a couple of rounds. Now, this aircraft does have one big key weakness that a lot of people are going to get tripped up off on if they aren't too aware of it. So, if you go into X-ray and look at the wings, you'll see that there is actually liquid cooling systems mounted in the wings, which means if you take a glancing hit anywhere in this general direction, you are going to be leaking something and your performance is going to be compromised very easily. So this thing doesn't do tankiness very well, I found. Like, even if you get tickled by the gunner on a bomber, you're probably going to be suffering some sort of engine damage due to the weird placement of the cooling system, unfortunately. That is a big problem with this. So this thing is all about offense, very minimal defense. Speaking of defense, there is little to no armor protecting the pilot as well. There is no frontal armor whatsoever, and there is a bit of rear armor. So this thing is very easy to cop a pilot snipe as well, particularly if your opponent is spewing a lot of lead in your general direction. It can be very easily to get knocked out of the plane. Now, another positive with it is it does have very good fuel load. It has a lot of fuel tanks, thankfully self-sealing fuel tanks, and the minimum fuel load for this aircraft is 31 minutes, so, for a sim game, that's a decent amount, even for the minimal fuel load. Now, it climbs well. Overall, for an aircraft, it climbs very well, especially under WEP. However, the engine overheats very quickly. In fact, if you have the throttle on 100%, not on WEP, the engine will still overheat. So I tend to leave the throttle at 95 unless I am needing absolute power to get out of a tricky situation. I don't even use WEP for climbing half the time just because of how quickly this thing overheats. And one more thing to mention with this aircraft. Despite the heavy guns, it is still quite maneuverable, and that is going to be quite handy when you are flying against German and Italian aircraft. Now, speaking of German and Italian aircraft, what kind of enemies are you going to face with this thing? Well, in Sim, it has a battle rating of 3.3, which puts it in a bit of a weird spot. So that means it is top tier for Enduring Confrontation Tier 2. However, it takes a while to sometimes get the spawn points for that, so you can also be expected to take this thing out in Enduring Confrontation 3 as well. I personally think it does okay at Boast, however it will do a lot better in Tier 2 than at Tier 3. It is maneuverable, however other aircraft in Tier 3 will outclimb you, and with a lot of aircraft in Tier 3 firing cannons and or lots of machine guns at you, it's going to be very easy to cop hits to your exposed cooling system and force a return to base, or in fact just lose the fight altogether. So I would say, overall, this thing is still best used in a Tier 2 game where it is the top dog, and it really is the top dog. The guns just clap everything out the sky. But enough waffling about the aircraft. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a couple of games, and I will give you guys a brief demonstration of how this thing goes, so you guys can make a decision whether or not it's going to be worth your grind. So enjoy! So with this battle, we got incredibly lucky and we were able to find a winter Stalingrad map, which is excellent for engine temperature management controls, particularly for the ITP, which does have a habit of overheating quite easily when on WEP. So I only really use WEP for takeoff, emergency climbing, and brief bursts in combat. Other than that, I don't touch it. Now, our first engagement is essentially over the river directly over the city, and this is with a BF 109 E1 flown by a very capable player who goes by the name of Iron Sheep, and it is the first and honestly the best dogfight that I've had in the ITP, and I thought, you know what, let's show it first just to give you a bit of a treat. So I begin the engagement with a slight altitude and energy advantage. However, the 109E is considerably better in vertical maneuvers in terms of energy retention than I am. And I got incredibly lucky with a opening salvo over the 20 mils, nicking the water cooling of the 109. So that immediately puts the engagement in my favor, and Iron Sheep needs to end this as quickly as possible. And so he's going to continue using the vertical maneuvers to his advantage. I cannot turn as well in the vertical as I can in horizontal compared to the 109. The ITP turns a lot better horizontally than the 109, but not vertically. And so he's trying to get me to turn vertically, I'm trying to get him to turn horizontally. And this sort of devolves into a sort of weird version of rolling scissors, but sort of not quite rolling scissors, as we both slowly drop our altitude closer and closer to the ground, which will eventually work in my favor, as the lower I am, the usually better performing the aircraft is, and the 109 will not be able to dive away from me if it needs to escape. And so we have reached essentially ground, or well, ice level, and considering this is a winter Stalingrad, and we have run out of places to essentially dive further down to, and so Iron Sheep is trying to extend away to then zoom climb up and get a attack of opportunity on me. However, I don't have a damaged engine, and so I'm able to pull up and engage once again. Don't get any hits with the 20 mils. I have not decided to use the 37 mil yet. I'm only using the 20s at this point. Before this engagement, I did engage an AI bomber, and the 30 mil sparked quite a bit, so I was quite hesitant to use it in a close-on engagement with a fighter. See if I can get everything done with the Shvaks first of all. However, this fight is dragging on, and so I think it is time for us to start engaging with the 30 mils to try and bring this to a reasonable close. Iron Sheep's taken me for a right old chase with this so far. He has kept me on my toes. I'm just keeping up with him in terms of maneuvers. The 109 E1 is the most maneuverable of the 109s. It's very light, and its engine is still reasonably powerful, even though it is the E series. So it's a very twitchy 109. Definitely turns a lot better than some of the mid-series ones. I personally find anyway. And so sometimes people in the Russian aircraft who think, oh, you know, they'll be able to outturn things easily, underestimate it. And we open up with a 37 mil, and we are able to get a good hit, and we fire another shot, and we slice his tail off. Honestly, that fight could have been over a lot sooner had I used the 37 mil earlier. However, I was a bit sketchy due to all the sparks I had been getting, but that was a brilliant dogfight, and a huge shout out to Iron Sheep for giving me a very entertaining chase. The next engagement was significantly less in terms of time spent. We had a friendly who was being pursued back to their base by another 109. And as we were returning to base as well to repair and rearm, I thought, you know what, let's engage this and help our buddy out. So the Yak 7 is being pursued by the 109. 109 hasn't really been checking over his shoulder to see if anything's slotting in to come to the assistance of the Yak, and so this gives me a beautiful deflection on it. We don't get the kill shot, but we do definitely get something damaged on the aircraft. Looks like it's now leaking both water and oil, and it's definitely going to have some problems keeping up with us if he decides to continue with the fight and not cut and run and head back to base. However, he decides he wants to keep fighting, and so we oblige him with a 37mm in the fuselage, and that is the end of that. So after rearming, we come across another aircraft that was pursuing another friendly, and it turns out this was actually a sort of a four-way dogfight, but it was a very spread out four-way dogfight that I didn't really sort of comprehend fully until after the engagement had somewhat finished. Behind us there is another dogfight happening between a MiG and a 109, however this 109 is engaging the friendly Yak 7, which I believe is a bot. Yes, it is a bot. However, we've got a friendly Lag 3 also helping us with this particular engagement. Now, have a cheeky shot at the 109, probably shouldn't have fired at such a long distance, as those 37s are incredibly difficult to aim at anything above 300 meters. 250 meters should honestly be the furthest you should aim to engage with those. The closer you are, the better, and the more likely you are to aim. And we got a pretty atrocious spark then, and then we got another one just then on the 109. However, I don't know if it's a graphics glitch or if it's just actually happened, but the aircraft's propellers don't appear to be spinning. So I'm assuming he's got a dead engine, so I decide to disengage from the 109 and go for the Heinkel 112 that has just dove in upon us. Now, I believe that at this stage it is a player, but it actually turns out that it is indeed a bot. And we squeeze off a couple of quick rounds here, and we get incredibly lucky with a long distance hit, and we're able to take out that Heinkel. It's at this point that we encounter our first gun jam, and the 37mm cannon is now useless to us in this next particular dogfight. So again, like I said at the start of this video, it can only really manage 6 or so consecutive shots before it jams and becomes completely useless. So you really should only squeeze off 2 or 3 shots at once in quick succession with a 37mm just to be safe. So with this engagement we are just going to be relying on the 20mm, however they are high velocity SVACs, so I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to look after ourselves quite easily with this particular fight, considering we also outnumber the enemy 3-1 despite my atrocious aim there. I am of course being incredibly conscious of when and for how long I am firing my guns, as I don't want to accidentally cause damage to the friendly aircraft in this engagement. However, we have gotten ourselves into a very fine position to take out this 109, and we do get some pretty average sparks on the airframe. However, we do manage to nick some sort of cooling system. However, the 109 cuts throttle and forces us into an overshoot, which is a particularly nasty position, especially as he pulls up and gains a mild energy advantage on us. So we pull into a tight bank, and the MiG is actually slotting in on the 109 as well, so now we are in the defensive. However, my plan is to keep the 109 turning so that the MiG can hopefully get a shot off on him. Now we do score a couple of minor hits from the 109. Thankfully it doesn't hit any of the cooling system in the wings. We got incredibly lucky there. That would have been quite unfortunate had he done any damage to the water cooling system itself. Now we are just staying in these long winding right hand banks to bleed the 109 of all energy so that our MiG can get a good firing solution on him. He's getting slower and slower and slower. The MiG as well, also getting slower and slower. However, it is a bit better than the 109 at these low speeds. However, we are actually able to now outturn the 109 at these slower speeds, and so it could be that we actually get to finish this dogfight off. The 109 is now deciding that it needs to extend away from this fight, as it has literally got no more energy left for any turning maneuvers. However, he's left it a bit late, and we take him out, and at the last second, Wingling Dragon flew in and either collided with his corpse or just pancaked into the ground at the tier 2 equivalent of Mach 1. But that was quite amusing. Now, I was about to head back to base when we got jumped by another 109, and at this point it is a cause for concern as we have less than 80 rounds of ammunition left, and well, my accuracy with the Russian guns is not the best, and so I was incredibly worried that I was going to run out of ammunition before I was able to finish this fight. And what you're going to see here is an excellent example of trigger discipline as we fight with this German C202, which was on the German tree before the Italian air tree was a thing. So this is a very, very old game model that we're fighting here. Now you notice that I'm not firing until basically the aircraft is almost stationary in our crosshair, and we are certain that there's going to be minimal to no deviation possible so that we're not wasting our shots. Unfortunately we missed with those few, however the C202 is staying on its course. Now it has taken the bait and is pulling up to chase after the MiG at the same time. Now I don't know if he's forgotten that I'm right behind him or if he just isn't too concerned. However, we score a couple of lucky hits and take out his tail, and he heads down into the river. Now for a split second I thought he was going to recover there, however, splat, in he goes. And that is how you win a fight with less than 60 rounds of ammunition. In fact, I think we had less than 40 at the start of that fight, but overall, I was very happy with how that turned out. So the ITP is a very good aircraft in Tier 2. But what about Tier 3? In the next few clips you're going to see here is just going to be a brief demonstration of how this aircraft performs in a Tier 3 game, where the battle rating is 3.7 to 4.7. This is a battle rating 3.3 aircraft, so it is definitely at the bottom end in terms of performance. However, its guns are still incredibly good. My advice for flying the ITP in the higher tiers is to fly it in more of a support role. Find the ground battles where enemy aircraft will be busy low ground pounding and take opportunity attacks on them. It is not advisable to go into one-on-one dogfights, as you could be fighting things like 109 F4s, 109 A5, 190 A5s, you could be fighting Italian captured Spitfires. If it's a mixed battle, you could just be fighting Spitfires in general, Zeros, all sorts of things that can outmaneuver you. Now you can probably still outrun a Zero in this, but a lot of other aircraft in the 3747 battle rating tier will definitely be able to outrun and outturn you. So only pick fights that you know you have an almost guaranteed chance of at least, if not winning, but coming out with a maneuverability advantage. Now speaking of attacks of opportunity, this is what a good example is here. So there is a ground battle happening, and there is a German HS-129 ground pounding on the pillboxes and on the tanks. And so this is a brilliant target for us to take out. It's a large twin-engine aircraft, it's less maneuverable than us, and it makes a juicy target for the 37mm guns. However, said 37mm gun sparks atrociously on the 129, which forces us to go up into the vertical to make another pass. This is very unfortunate, as I was hoping to have that as a wonderful deflection kill. However, I have high ping, and so sparks are just a common fact of life for me, unfortunately. However, with the second pass we do cut off its tail and secure the kill. And just after taking out the 129, we did take an attack of opportunity on a 190 that was a bit distracted from a previous dogfight. However, the 190 pilot very quickly realizes that we are on their tail, and if it wasn't for this incredibly lucky hit that we got on their engine there, they could have very easily extended away from us and turned the fight against us. However, as they are now leaking oil and coolant, I pursue the attack, and this turns into a very low altitude fast chase. Again, in normal circumstances, the 190 could have easily pulled away. The ITP is not the fastest aircraft in a straight line, although it does have very good climbing and diving speeds. But in a straight line, it's pretty meh. And we are firing a lot of rounds here, trying desperately to get this 190 into the ground. He is being very touchy, he's using lots of rudder, he's using lots of rolls, he's flying exactly how you should defensively in a 190, which is in a more or less straight line, and just jinking all over the place so your opponent misses as many shots as possible. This is of course a nightmare for us, as a relatively low velocity 37mm gun is a nightmare to aim, and I'm also relying on the 20mm Shivaks to get the job done here, and they do that pretty admirably, and we eventually cause a detonation of the airframe, and we secure the kill. So the ITP, in a nutshell, it absolutely clubs in Tier 2, and it does reasonably well in Tier 3, although some aircraft will of course outperform it, particularly 190s, especially the top tier 190s at that bracket. Now, one thing I want to quickly mention that I forgot to do at the beginning of the video, and I apologize for that, is that this aircraft also has some ordnance options as well. So you can get Fab 100s, you can get Fab 50s, and you can get the RBS 82 rockets and the RS 82 rockets. So this thing has got some brilliant close air support capabilities as well, particularly if you take the armor piercing rounds for that 37mm. I can see this aircraft getting a lot of use in combined battles. Just with the combination of bombs and the cannon, it'll definitely be a nice addition to any ground battle lineup. In summary, I think it is worth the grind for the battle pass. I think it's a fun aircraft. I think it is a great addition to Tier 2 Russia and theoretically Tier 3 Russia. They're honestly the most fun tiers I find for Russia is Tier 2 and Tier 3, and then after that, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Tier 4 Russia for whatever reason. I've been loving Rank 5, but the most fun I have as Russia is still Rank 2, just because of the sheer variety of different stuff you get. You know, Yak 1s, IL-2s, LA-5s, I-16s. You get, you know, all the interesting weird premiums as well, and you get some quite semi-decent bombers at this tier as well. So this is a brilliant addition to any Tier 2 Russia lineup, and it's definitely something that I will be happy to grind if I ever get round to actually doing the battle pass with my ever-dwindling free time. But guys, let me know what you think of the ITP in the comments below, and let me know if you are going to be grinding for this, or if you are even going to be bothering with the season pass this season. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you found it useful, and I will catch you all next time. Goodbye.